right, everybody, welcome back to another episode of Honestly Bilal, the show for the aspiring ophthalmologist, where I sit down and talk with medical students who are interested in ophthalmology, with residents who are training in ophthalmology, and with current ophthalmologists in the field today. My name is Bilal Ahmed, and I'm a fourth-year medical student at the University of Toledo, and I'm going to be an incoming resident at the University of Iowa. So today I'm joined by medicine's funniest guy, ophthalmology's funniest guy. He's a top-notch physician and somebody who brightens up everybody's timeline. So Dr. Glaucomflecken is here. So Dr. G, I'm really excited to talk with you, get to know you. So thanks for joining me.
Hey, great to be here. Thanks for inviting me.
So I'm going to tell a short story because this is kind of crazy how life works sometimes. I'm sure it was a really average day for you. I'm not really sure what you had going on, but it was a day that changed my life because I was a third-year medical student a year ago around this time, looking to do an away rotation in ophthalmology. And you know how it works for anybody who's out there who's kind of new to the process or is trying to figure out the process. If you don't come from a school at the home ophthalmology department, then it's really recommended you do an away rotation somewhere else where you can get exposed to the field and get to know people there. And hopefully, you know, even if you're lucky enough, get a letter of recommendation. And I was in a situation where I just joined Twitter. It was during the pandemic, the early stages. And I was really at home just kicking the can around. I've been listening to podcasts, trying to think about what my idea how to get into ophthalmology would be, or something I could do to kind of just like get to know people. And it didn't help when I found out that my rotation at the University of Kentucky got canceled by accident. So I had just had this Twitter account that had like 6 followers. And so I just tweeted out a picture of the email. And lo and behold, a really nice lady by the name of Dr. Usiwoma Abugo retweeted the email and tagged some people. And Dr. G here saw the tweet and he just responded and said, hey, maybe try rotating at private practice or something like that. So totally random tweet. He tweeted at me. And somehow the program director at the University of Kentucky saw that. They reinstated my rotation, and now here I am, matched into ophthalmology. Met a lot of great. It was a day where you probably don't even remember, but that day literally set the path for me. So thanks for that.
That's awesome. I honestly, I wish I don't remember that, but that's great. In fact, I have a little bit of a connection with Kentucky because I did a talk at their university. So
Nice.
I talked to the Department of Ophthalmology there once. So maybe that had something to do with it. But I'm glad it all worked out. That's great.
Yeah, Dr. Moore actually told me that you gave a talk there. He said you're a really funny guy. And so I'm looking to get some tips from you in comedy and medicine, all things. So we'll get started here. But just, I like to kind of expose or help get people exposed to ophthalmology if I can through this show, if they're interested in it, if they want to know something about it. So let's hear about you. I mean, I want to know, when you were a medical student, you do such a good job of really relating back to being like that med student who just like walks into the room on a new day of a rotation. And I feel like that resonates with so many of us. So what was that day like when you found ophthalmology? So like what kind of set you into the path and what got you interested in the field, and just really sell it for anybody who's out there about why it's like the best specialty in medicine.
Can you tell that med school was a formative experience for me? Because like I still remember so much just the feeling of being a med student and going through those rotations and just being thrown into a new experience like every month. It's just that visceral feeling is still with me, even though I graduated from med school now 7 years ago. But my exposure to ophthalmology actually started really late. So I had met a couple of ophthalmologists, but it was more of like a general advisor role that they were in. And so I was aware of what they did, but I didn't really explore ophthalmology until right at the beginning of my 4th year. So I got exposed to it very late. I was actually coming off of my core surgery rotation, which was in vascular surgery, which could not be any different than ophthalmology, because you're on your feet, you're wearing lead, you're in like 6-hour cases, sometimes longer. And then I immediately and you're in the hospital, right? You're taking care of like the sickest patients in the hospital. And so I immediately went from that experience to an ophthalmology elective. And it was just like, it was a breath of fresh air for me, because I wasn't a big fan of hospital medicine. And all of a sudden I was in an outpatient. I knew when my day would end. It was faster paced. I could, see a lot of patients. I really liked that part of it. And I got to be in the operating room, but I got to sit down. It was awesome. And we did like 8 cases in a day, and everything kept moving. I just love the pace of it. I love all the the gadgets and the equipment you get to use. Even though I was a med student, I didn't know how to use any of it. But it was really cool watching an ophthalmologist use it. I was like, this is where I need to be. And so it was really that simple for me. But it was really part of it was that transition from doing a really hardcore inpatient rotation into all of a sudden being an outpatient. I was like, this is it.
Nice. Yeah, I think the other thing is like I actually did a vascular surgery rotation towards the end of my third year surgery clerkship, kind of similar to you. And I was like, yeah, feet, and it's not for me. I'm just not in that boat. So whoever is,
Yeah, and all my attendings were like wearing compression stockings because they had to be on their field day. Man, I was like, man, I don't know about this. I love sitting down way too much.
that's fair. Hey, it's a good pitch. So, and I love that you make it to where, like we talked about, you really relate back to the experience as a med student, going through different specialties and kind of capturing the persona in your TikToks about the different personalities in medicine. And I think that one thing I've noticed about ophthalmology is that it really caters towards people who really like have a creative itch or something like that, or something that they kind of like to do on the side, or something that they're really passionate about that kind of keeps them maybe even motivated in the field itself. So I'm kind of curious, when you go through your comedic experience and you make TikToks and stuff like that, I don't want to reel the magic, but I do want to know, when do your ideas hit you? Like, I just imagine you being at a point,
Yeah.
3 p.m. in the afternoon, you're at the slit lamp and you like pull away and you're like, wait a minute, man, I know
Yeah.
exactly what TikTok I need to make today. So how does it work?
Yeah, so my creative process, it really, um, it starts with just a funny thought, or just something that pops into my head, whether it's like a joke or just an observation that I've had about ophthalmology. Um, but the content that I make outside of ophthalmology, the rest of medicine, which I'd argue is probably more popular than, because ophthalmology is such a small field, right?
Sure.
Um, it actually goes back to my days several years ago writing for Gomer Blog, where I'd be writing these satire articles, and I'd be really trying to figure out different parts of medicine and what some of the nuances, some of the idiosyncrasies of doctors and other specialties. So I've been doing this for a while, and then I got into Twitter, and it was following people in different specialties and just kind of passively seeing what they're talking about, what their frustrations are in their particular specialty. And so I draw on all of that. And really it's just about having exposure to what other people that aren't in your field are saying. And so I'll get an idea. Sometimes it's based off something somebody in cardiology said a couple days ago that's kind of struck me as funny.
Yeah.
And so I'll take those little ideas and I'll just flesh it out, come up with some dialogue, come up, and pretty soon I have a TikTok on my hands. But it does take, it takes a little bit of time. It's, people see the finished product, but it's actually several days that I'm thinking about it, and I'm formulating, okay, what do I want to say? And usually my process is I'm not really writing anything down. It's just kind of stuck in my head until I put it out onto video. And so it's almost like a compulsion, like, okay, I keep thinking about it. I can't stop thinking about this idea I have.
Uh-huh.
I won't stop thinking about it until I actually do it. And so it's really, it's kind of, just happens organically, and during my normal day. And I don't know, maybe that's not how other people do it, but that's kind of how I do it. I don't actually sit down and think, okay, what am I going to do for it?
Right, right. And I think it makes sense because, I mean, honestly, anybody who has an idea or a thought, sometimes it's just kind of like a clap all of a sudden, and
Yeah.
you just can't stop it, and you have that, like I said, that itch, and you're like, I just gotta find out a way to do this one. And I feel like it's cool because you're always putting out content, and some of my favorite ones are, I feel like there's always a point where I'm like, oh, that's my favorite one, and then you've come up with another one. So kudos to you, man. I mean, that takes a lot of just having natural talent too, just having that ability to think about stuff and be really observant. I think that's something about comedy I've always noticed, that people who are the really good comedians are the ones who are really observant about the things that people don't really think about, and then they bring that into life in a really fun way, and then it gets everybody laughing. So I think it's really cool.
Yeah, part of it's finding the right angle, because a lot of the jokes I have, they're things that people joke about. They're subjects that I that aren't new. We've all been making fun of the same things in medicine for years and years. It's just finding the right angle maybe that people haven't thought of, and just exploiting that. And so, and that's just something I've just developed over time. And just like anything in medicine, you know, in comedy, the more you do it, the better you're going to get at it. And so, and I really do feel like my comedy's evolved over the last several years, and it's been really exciting getting into doing more video format. And eventually, I'd love to do a more long, you know, long format video, but I just even as an ophthalmologist, I don't have time for that. So,
No,
but it is nice being in ophthalmology because you know, I do have more time to
that,
do this type of thing. I can devote a little bit more time on the weekends or on my days off to be able to do this, and it's important to me because it's my hobby. It's a big part of me.
yeah, absolutely. And that was one thing I was actually thinking about is having the time to do these kind of things. It energizes you, it makes you more excited about getting back at it and thinking about it more and more. So as I'm hoping to tune into your longer shows and see when that comes out, but hopefully that happens someday. So I want to know, you know, this is kind of important, something that you touched on, and I kind of relate with is the idea of, you know, having that outlet. Sometimes people see the finished product, but they don't know what goes in behind it. And not only that, but you put yourself out there. You know, I mean, you're putting yourself out there on a very regular basis with your comedy. And as somebody who's at much more amateur level in podcasting, I feel that same way when I put something out there. I feel like, you know, I put it out there, but maybe people don't know what I did. And I'm not looking for recognition for how much time I put into
Mhm.
it, but, you know, it does take time. It takes somebody to think about. You think about questions and stuff like that. And my real question here is that maybe there's a medical student listening who has, you know, something they really like to do and that they want to put out there, but maybe they're afraid of criticism, or maybe they're afraid of what people
Mhm.
are going to say about them. And you know, I don't know, I'm sure you've heard some criticism on Twitter when you've put something out there, you comment here that you didn't like. And I know for me, I've had that recently where I've read something about me I didn't like. And you know, maybe you can tell any med student out there something positive to think about when they do something that's different, how they can really stay confident and want to keep doing what they're doing.
Yeah, and that's a it's hard. It's hard getting started in something. And I still remember whenever I first got into social media and doing comedy on Twitter, and not getting any likes, and I having, you know, 20 followers. Like I can remember that, and the feeling that you get when you get like 10 likes on a tweet. It's like, wow, you know, 10 people liked what I wrote.
Sure.
And then it's, you know, I think that the key is sticking with it. And you know, my comedy is in stand up. I did a lot of stand up comedy before I got into social media. I basically stopped doing stand up because just medicine took over. I didn't have time to do stand up anymore. But it's the same thing in stand up. It's so easy to just stop because you have a set that doesn't go well and nobody laughs and the audience just you just get you get nothing from anybody. And it's the worst feeling whenever you're in front of people and they're not laughing at something that you're saying and you're trying to get them to laugh. When you
Yeah.
don't get a laugh, it's really hard. um, and in a way, it's kind of the same thing. And when I'm putting content out on social media, like whenever I tell a joke that doesn't go over well, like that feels bad, and it makes you kind of not want to do it. But you need to remember that anything is a skill. Any content you create, it's a skill, and you're going to develop that skill. And it's hard not to take things personally. It's still hard. Like I still don't like it when I get criticized for something that I do, or when I don't get a good response or the response that I was expecting.
Sure.
um, but eh, the most important thing is just gradually improving. And the only way to do that is to not stop, and you just
Mhm.
have to keep going. And the criticism, it sticks with you, but remembering all the good things people have said about you and what you do, and all the people that you've helped, or the people that support you. It's really easy to focus on that negative criticism, but what's going to sustain you is the positive. And it's hard. It's hard to do, but that's how I've tried to think about it. And I've really, especially over the last couple of years, I've been a lot better at just forgetting the people that are criticizing me. um, I still read it. In fact, I will, if people give me negative feedback, I absolutely read it, but I know what to take, what to focus on, and what to just forget about.
Yeah.
And that's something that comes with time. Um, but at the beginning, I think it's just important to just keep going, and remember that, part of the reason you're doing this, part of the reason you're doing whatever it is you're doing outside of medicine, or within medicine, whatever endeavor that you're taking on, part of the reason you're doing is because it's important to you.
Yeah.
And you're not doing it, and for me, not really doing it for the response from others. I'm doing it because it's something I enjoy.
Yeah. Yeah.
Never forgetting that.
Absolutely. And I think that's really important. I mean, I feel like in a way, the positive stuff is great to read, and you always want to remember that, because it inspires you to keep going. But even the negative stuff, I feel like sometimes it can even inspire you even more just because you're like, well, not to put a chip on your shoulder, but maybe I can look into, because otherwise you get, it's good to stay humble with that stuff and be like, oh yeah, there's something I need to improve here. Or there's just some people in life, I think I've accepted this, and maybe you've accepted this too, that anytime you put yourself out there on the internet, people are going to like you and people are going to just dislike you. And you may never know why, but it's just the risk you take when you put yourself out there, and you have to accept that. It's just kind of how it is. And if
Yeah.
secure about why you're doing what you're doing, and if it's something you enjoy, you do it.
I
So
mean, I've dealt with a lot of that. I mean, because it's, especially on the social media, it's so easy
mhm.
for people to bash you, that don't like you for whatever reason, or just don't like what you're saying. It's so simple to
Yeah,
put that negativity out there. And so really, trying to parse out what's constructive and what's destructive and what's only going to hurt you, and that's a hard thing to do,
sure.
especially with social media.
I've chosen, I'm not typically a lazy guy, but I've chosen to just be lazy about the negative stuff. I'm like, I see this comment, stop reading now because it is what it is. But and
Yeah, just keep doing what you're doing.
yeah, that's awesome. So I think there's any med student out there, if you have something you're interested in that's outside medicine, it's kind of different, go for it. I think it's a really great comment. So Dr. G, I gotta know, I'm looking into, starting my residency soon, and I want to, find that fine line between, making patients happy and making them laugh, but also taking good care of them. And I recently saw a little video that you put up on Twitter about, you responding to the idea of humor and professionalism, and how do you blend the two, and how do you, try to be who
Mhm.
you are organically as a healthcare professional. So I just want to, get your take on that. Like, how's a good way to really balance being funny, or trying to make a situation lighter, and make someone happy on a rough day or something, or even on a normal day? And how do you do that in a way that is, maintaining professional boundaries, but at the same time, shows a little bit of your personality and makes people comfortable?
Yeah, I think what's important to remember, and this is a big difference in how doctors and just the medical field in general have operated. I think it's really important to understand that patients want their doctors to seem human,
Yeah.
to seem fallible, to have faults and have emotions and have interests, and they get excited about things and get sad about things. Like, all this is very important. And my recent experiences as a patient have only compounded that 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 understanding, that it's really helpful to see your doctor be a normal human being with a personality.
Yeah.
And that's different than the way a lot of people who have been in medicine for years and years, who have been practicing for the last 20, 30 years. That's just a difference with how people approach medicine.
Hmm.
And that comes back to this idea of professionalism, because doctors have this code of professionalism. We are expected. I think there's more expected of us in terms of professionalism than people in most other fields outside of medicine.
Sure.
And I think that's okay, because we have a very unique position in society.
Hmm.
We are in this position where people are extremely vulnerable in front of us, where we are expected to take care of patients without judgment, without prejudice, and it's important that we maintain that position in society for our patients, for the general public. But there's a limit to that. Often people weaponize this idea of professionalism and take it to the extreme and say, well, you can't show yourself.
Mm,
You can't express your personality because you're basically trying to make doctors these perfect beings, these infallible beings. And that's not what it should be like, because that's a detriment, uh, I think, to our patients and to ourselves,
right.
because that makes it less likely for patients to be able to relate to us.
Exactly. Yeah.
And it just makes problems like physician burnout and depression and suicide. It just like it compounds all these issues, the idea that doctors have to be perfect.
Right.
And so, yeah, there is a standard for professionalism, but we need to not take it too far, because we need to be able to express our personalities. And in the past, this has been in private, right? Doctors have been doing this in the break rooms, in small groups at each other's houses. But what's changed is now we have social media.
Mm,
And so people are doing this more out in the open. And you have to do it professionally, but you can still be yourself on social media. You can still make jokes on social media, as long as you don't you know cross any lines in
yeah.
terms of making fun of patients, or giving out patient information, and not bullying. So there's a big difference, and we have to find that middle ground. you know
Yeah, yeah, I like that a lot. I mean, I really do think that the human experience that you touched on is so vital. I mean, and the pressure to be perfect sometimes. For me personally, I've mentioned this more on my Instagram, but I struggled initially in medical school. I failed 3 classes and I remediated my first year of medicine, and I got a second chance. And that second chance was really what inspired me to really find my inner, ability, and it gave me more confidence coming back from that. And I've seen second chances in life too, and I know that you've had a second chance multiple times with health issues. I think I just wanted to kind of get your take on what has a second chance really meant to you, and what are some takeaways that you like for people who, you know, maybe sometimes in life we complain about the wrong things and we aren't focused on the big picture sometimes. And I really am inspired by what you've done with First Descent and that organization, with
Mhm.
your own story and how you related to that organization, how you're really passionate about helping that organization still today. So, if you don't mind talking about your second chance with your health issues and when
Yeah.
really given you, and talk about First Descent if you don't mind too.
Sure. Yeah. So, I'm a two-time testicular cancer survivor, and so I've been doing a lot of advocacy work for this organization called First Descent, which it provides these outdoor adventure experiences for groups of young adults who have had cancer. It kind of brings them together, because that's a group of, whenever you earn your 20s and you have cancer, it's a very lonely experience. You don't know anybody around you that is going through that experience. So this organization brings these people together, these young adults together, and forms this support network. And so, I do what I can to try to raise money for that, and just get people to know that they're out there. And it's been helpful for just my recovery, and not physical recovery, but emotional, mental recovery, because that those going through cancer, in med school and again in residency, those med school and residency is hard enough, and then you add sometimes these life events that can pop up, and it just makes things that much harder. And so by trying to help others, and get the word out for a great organization like that, it helps me cope with it,
Yeah,
as does the humor. And that I've always done, and I've always used humor to cope with these types of things.
sure.
And then the same thing happened when I had my cardiac arrest last year. So I swear, like every 4 years I try to die. And my wife is sick of it, I'll tell you that. And so yeah, it's a coping mechanism, and but it also helps other people. And so it's a positive, a way to try to turn a negative into a positive.
I love that. No, I mean, thank you so much for doing that. my mom was a cancer patient just 2 years ago. So for me, it's something I really resonate with, not personally for myself having cancer, but even watching a loved one, it really impacts you. And, anybody who's had a loved one with cancer, so many of us have. I really think that's a great organization, and I think we should all give it a chance. If you look at the website, I'll link it in the bio of this episode. Dr. G, want to finish up? I just told you before we start recording here that you're basically like my great, 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 great grandfather in ophthalmology, because you're also an alum from the University of Iowa, where I'm going to be starting my residency in July. So, just talk about Iowa, talk about the University of Iowa,
Yeah.
people there, your experience there. I loved the tweet that you put out the other day about programs that really stick up for you and for students who are thinking about their rank list in the coming weeks. So
Hmm.
just talk about your experience at the University of Iowa and how it set you up to be an ophthalmologist today, and what you really learned, and any tips that you have for me or for the others in the class of 2025, because this episode is for them.
Yeah, Iowa was really integral in my training, not just training as an ophthalmologist, but my just ability to be a good doctor and be a good person. So, and what you're talking about is I tweeted about uh, I always get asked because I speak to a lot of med students, and I get asked a lot about you know advice for choosing residency or when you're interviewing, and that's something that comes up pretty often. And it's I think what's really important is to go somewhere that has a real family feel to it, because people in residency, they're your family. For those, you're going to see sometimes for stretches of time, you'll see them more than you'll see your own family.
Right.
And and you're spending so much time with your co-residents, with the fellows, with the attendings. And ophthalmology is a very small world, and so you really get to know these people. And you need to think about going to programs or ranking programs highly that feel like family, where you feel like these people have each other's backs. They like it. They like talking about each other. They seem to really enjoy, um, being around each other. And it's hard to do that on Zoom. So like this whole year has probably been, it's really hard. I can't even imagine all you guys that have interviewed on Zoom over the last year. That seems incredibly difficult. Um, but I would encourage, there's questions you can ask, and I think they're perfectly valid questions to ask. When has a resident had like a personal crisis, and what did the program do to help? Because think about it, in your late 20s, your early 30s, that's when life events start happening.
Yeah.
Things happen. You get sick, a
Hmm.
family member dies. Like these are major issues, and you don't think about the fact that you're going to have to deal with these things while going through a very difficult, rigorous training program. It's a lot to put on somebody, to put on yourself. And so having people that support you and will help you through those situations is incredibly helpful, is incredibly beneficial. And Iowa did that for me. When I had my second cancer diagnosis, it was pretty devastating for me. But my co-residents took my call for me. Tom Oding, who I love Tom. He's just an unbelievable residency program director and just a great person. He he offered to babysit my kids. Like like they do things for their co-residents, and there are lots of programs out there that do that. And then I think it's really important during the interview process to try to figure that out. And it's not that hard. You can get a sense when you're talking to people, when you're going to visit programs, you
Right.
can tell who's happy and who's gonna support their residents through thick and thin.
Absolutely.
It's something you can figure that out.
No, I think it's so true. I mean, I can tell you from somebody who interviewed at Iowa, and the people I've luckily got to know now, my classmates. I mean, it's a place that has that feel. I knew from the day I interviewed there, I was like, yes, this is not 1 ounce of this is a performance. This is actually real. Even on Zoom, you can tell. So, I mean, I love that advice. Love that you're a part of the Iowa family. I'm so excited to join.
Yeah.
And
Congrats on Iowa, man. I'm excited for you. You're gonna have a great time.
I hope to add to it, and do something to help out other people, and we'll hopefully recruit more people to Iowa. So, Dr. Glaucomflecken, it is an honor to get to talk with you finally and get to know you. Love your story, love what you're about, and really inspired by you. And hopefully, a lot of people who are listening to this are even more inspired after listening to your experiences in comedy and life and medicine. So I want to thank you. I want to encourage everybody out there to follow Dr. Glaucomflecken at dglaucomflecken on Twitter and on TikTok. And one more time, Dr. G, thanks so much for being here.
Thanks, Bilal. Thanks for having me.
All right. Bye-bye.